Okay, so Hugh, you are a leading expert on hedgehogs in the UK, yes? And you've written several books about them. So my first question to you is, why hedgehogs?
Well, the answer is simply why not. It's interesting. I'm an ecologist, and I'll let you into a little secret. It's not just hedgehogs I love. I love wildlife. I love nature. Always have. And the reality is that whilst I do have a strong connection with hedgehogs, I also just use them mercilessly because people love hedgehogs. They're the nation's favorite animal. Every time there's a vote or a poll, a hedgehog wins. And therefore, I can have a conversation with people who might not want to have a conversation about, I don't know, the pollution from agriculture, our transport infrastructure, the fragmentation of our landscape, the impact of all of these things on macroinvertebrates, all of this sort of thing. They may not be conversations that people want to have, but they will have a conversation about hedgehogs. So just yesterday, I went down my first meeting away from home for over a year. I went down to Twickenham to a developer's development site very near Heathrow, and the developers had been asked by one of their neighbours about hedgehogs, about what they were going to do for hedgehogs, and the developers were put in touch with me, and so I went and talked to them. And what I'm talking to them about is how they can green their entire development. But we're having the conversation because they're interested in hedgehogs.
Wow, yeah.
So, but also I do love hedgehogs. I can take some clothes off now, I'm warming up. Shed life is, you got tricky acclimatization out here.
Yeah, so what made you decide to write a book about them?
Well, I wasn't planning on writing a book, and in fact, Miriam Darlington, who's the poet and author who has got me here, she runs a creative writing course down in Plymouth, and she's got me to go and lecture down there, and I do a lecture which is basically the accidental author. I say I'm an ecologist. I was doing field work. I help manage and run various campaigns about hedgehogs, conservation of hedgehogs. But I was also writing reports about genetically modified food, about the impact of indoor air pollution, about ownership of seed rights. All of but always because of work I'd done way back in the dark ages. I started work on hedgehogs. There's always the hedgehog stories kept cropping along, and part of it is I live in Oxford, and the friends of mine who I share an orchard with, 3 plots and allotment that we've got lots of fruit trees on, you sort of find yourself surrounded by authors at every turn. And it was a case of point, well, maybe I should. I've got lots of stories. And at a party, somebody'd ask you about hedgehogs and you'd find yourself talking non-stop. And I do lots of talks. I mean, I've done hundreds and hundreds of talks about hedgehogs. And so in the end, I thought, well, maybe I should try, with no particular thought of, success at it. I should give it a go, and suddenly discovered something I really love doing, which is writing long form about stuff I really care about.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, so in your book, you talk about your experience monitoring hedgehogs. Here we're partnered with the wildlife charity Arusha. I don't know if you've heard of them.
Oh, Arusha, yeah. It's I thought it's Arusha, yeah.
Arusha, yeah. And they've asked us to monitor hedgehogs on our 90-acre estate. So have you got any tips or advice for monitoring hedgehogs on our site? Could
you describe your site? Tell me what it's like.
It's partial woodland. We've got some meadows as well, and some houses.
Do you have any evidence that there are hedgehogs there?
Yes, we saw one 2 days ago.
Perfect.
The first one of the year. Yeah.
Okay, so that's great. So there are a number of ways of doing it, and it depends a little bit on how much time you want to spend out after dark yourself. Obviously, hedgehogs being nocturnal. I mean, the simplest thing is you simply spend time out there with a torch looking, but that will be inefficient, and you'll miss, in 90 hectares, you'll miss chunks of the space.
Yeah.
So through the People's Trust for Endangered Species, do we do it through the Hedgehog Society? Maybe the British Hedgehog Preservation Society as well. You can get tracking tunnels. And these are very simple. You could make them.
Yeah.
Very simple device. A triangular piece of corrugated plastic, maybe a meter long, maybe a bit less than a meter long. And in the middle of that, you have a little bait point, which is hedgehog flavored hedgehog food rather, and then you have a couple of ink pads, and then or a couple of bits of paper and ink pads. Can't remember which way around it is, but basically you have a system where you have 2 bits of paper, 2 ink pads, and bait, and the hedgehogs come into the tunnel to get to the bait. To get to the bait, they have to get their paws inky, and then they walk out over the paper and leave you footprints. Now this is a fairly effective way of identifying presence or absence. It gives you, it doesn't tell you though how many there are.
No.
You could get lots and lots and lots of footprints, and you could have one hedgehog going back and forward all the time. So, or you could just have, you could have no footprints, but the hedgehogs are avoiding it. It's not perfect, but it's a way. Trail cameras are another way of dealing with them. And slightly more expensive, slightly a bit more technical. And then if you want to ramp this up another level, you do lots of trail cameras, and then you can actually work out a population estimate as well through very clever statistics, which I cannot do.
We've got some maths experts here, so.
Okay, it's the random encounter method, and the person who was developing it, and I asked him to explain clearly at a conference how it worked. And he said, well, you set them all out like this, describe what you do, and then you do some statistical jiggery pokery. And that's what he said. I was thinking, okay, still I do not understand how this works. But it's it seems to be a very effective way of working out population presence. So the different ways of doing it, it depends a little bit on what your aim is. What would you want to do with information about hedgehogs?
Well, we've got there's an app called iRecord that we log all our data on, and any kind of wildlife really. So we're partnered with Arusha, and all the other partners have got the app too, so we can look at each other's data, and it's just really interesting to see all the different species on our site.
Yeah.
But especially hedgehogs.
Of course, hedgehogs are the and if you've got hedgehogs there, it means other stuff's doing okay. Yeah. Because they need the macroinvertebrates, and so it's evidence that macroinvertebrates are there. It means you've got a healthy, robust ecosystem. I mean, if you thought about looking to neighbouring hedgehog rescues and seeing if they want to release hedgehogs on your site.
No, actually, I'm not sure. We haven't really I don't really know any of the hedgehog rescues around here, but it's worth having a think about. So
again, British Hedgehog Preservation Society, they have a record of around 600 different hedgehog rescues around the country. And so if you just give them a call and say, we are here, who are our nearest hedgehog rescues, because we've got land which could be suitable for the release of hedgehogs. And maybe you end up with even more. Yeah, that'd be great. Our site is quite perfect for hedgehogs as well. Yeah, it'd be good. So have you got any simple ways for the public to make their garden more hedgehog friendly? Okay, so the first thing to remember is, despite the RSPB, bless their cotton socks, trying to sell to the world the idea that hedgehogs are essentially birds, they're not. Have you noticed, I know the RSPB went through a phase of every bit of its advertising, no pictures of birds, just pictures of hedgehogs. Anyway, hedgehogs can't fly. And so one of the biggest obstacles, well, literal obstacles as well, that hedgehogs face is in shorthand, it's habitat fragmentation. So if you can imagine an island, so you've got an island, and it's the most amazing, it's basically your 90 hectares, but bigger, 90 acres, sorry, but bigger, and it's got all of the most amazing wildlife things you need in it. And it's got one male hedgehog. And it's surrounded by the ocean. Obviously, that's not a viable population. No. Okay, so you have a small desert island with 1 million hedgehogs on it. That's not a viable population. But somewhere between the two, again, this is down to statistical jiggery pokery, I'm afraid. You can run a computer model which will give you an idea of what the minimum requirements are for a viable population. And so we got Tom Morehouse at the University of Oxford to do the modelling for us, because it's way beyond my pay grade. And he pointed out it's roughly 32 hedgehogs in your starting population, and they need 90 of the best habitat possible. And so that is right at the heart. That bit of ecological information is crucial, because you know that you need to be looking at an island of some sort, which is at least 90 hectares and has got at least 30 old hedgehogs in it. And so in suburbia, obviously, most gardens are, if I remember right, 0.018 hectares. Yeah, they're not very big. So there's not many people have a 90-hectare garden. And so you need to then look at the concept of how do we integrate our patch into the wider landscape. And this is why the campaign Hedgehog Street is such a simple, straightforward and good way into doing this. Now, the Hedgehog Street website is partly British Hedgehog Preservation Society, who I work with, and also the People's Trust for Endangered Species. And if you go to the website, you can sign up, become a hedgehog champion. You've got access to all of the information up there. There's the top 10 tips of the hedgehogs, how to make garden hedgehog friendly, but we also have produced information for farmers, for land managers, for developers, to explain how to do this. But for us, for the patch that we've got, the most simple thing is make sure the hedgehogs can get in. So make sure there's a hole in the fence 13 centimeters across at ground level so the hedgehogs can get in. That's the first bit. Then I would look at removing hazards from your garden. So if you've got a pond, make sure that any hedgehog that got into it could get out of it. Hedgehogs can swim, but not forever. Make sure if you've been clearing leaves out of drains and things, you put the cover back onto it so the hedgehogs don't fall in. Get rid of the pesticides. Get rid of netting on the ground, because hedgehogs get tangled in that and they die. And then start looking at the positive things. What can you plant now? And you go, planting for hedgehogs? Well, yes, actually, there's a whole bunch of things you can plant now which will attract insects, and the insects lay eggs which become the grubs which the hedgehogs eat. So you plant with wildlife in mind. You get rid of that weird ethic that you need to tidy up your garden. Don't do it. Whatever your neighbors think, don't tidy up. Have a log pile, have a bramble patch. Have these things which hedgehogs need. All of these things together will really help to, and obviously the most important bit is talk to your neighbors. Sorry, nothing works out talk to your neighbors, get your neighbors to talk to their neighbors, and spread hedgehog love down the hedgehog street.
That's really helpful, thank you. Yeah, and is there any way to encourage hedgehogs into a garden that they're not there, if they're not there already?
If you build it, they will come. Does happen. That's a part of it. So if they're in the area, making your garden accessible, because hedgehogs will explore at night. So if you make your garden accessible, they will explore and they will come. If there are no hedgehogs in the area, then it's harder, because how are the hedgehogs actually going to get to you? There is so you use iRecord. There is a project, well, part of the Hedgehog Street project is called the Big Hedgehog Map. And so there's a website, the Big Hedgehog Map, and does what it says in the tin. It's a big map of hedgehog sightings around the country. So I'd suggest, if people are interested, they look on that and see if people are seeing hedgehogs near where they are. So they may not have noticed hedgehogs, but their neighbors may have already recorded lots of sightings. So that's a way of doing that. And the final one really is, if you're in a really good hedgehog area but there are no hedgehogs, then find your local rescue. Find your local hedgehog rescue. Many of them will want to do a check to see what your garden's like, to check that you haven't got some massive badger set down at the bottom of the garden or something, and you're not next to the M25, and they will and then you may become one of their release sites, which also is a great advantage.
Yeah, that'd be very positive. And if you had any tips or advice on how to care for an injured hedgehog, or when you see out during the day, what would you recommend?
Okay, so good point. I mean, hedgehogs being nocturnal, if they're out in the day, they are probably, but not definitely, poorly. And so if you see a hedgehog, if there's been a sudden downpour of rain, or somebody's come in with a mower or something like that, and you see a hedgehog purposefully walking across your garden during the day, in daylight, I'd just keep an eye on it, but probably leave it alone. But hedgehogs don't sunbathe. And if they look drunk, it's not because they've been at the communion wine, it's because they have got hypothermia and they are going to die if they're not looked after. So yes, I mean, the simplest thing is, if you see a hedgehog like that, if it's got covered in ticks, if it's got flies around it, then really quick intervention. Please do not see a hedgehog, go inside, phone the British Hedgehog Preservation Society to get a contact for your local rescue, get in touch with your local rescue and say, well, what should we do? Because what they'll say is, have you got the in a box already, and you say, no, it's just outside, and you'll go outside and it's scuttled off into the bushes. Yeah. So first thing, if you see a hedgehog in distress, is you pick it up and you stick it into a box. The advice now is to use gloves. They do carry various zoonoses, diseases we can catch, such as ringworm and things, or just pick them up with a towel or something, wrap it up, stick it into a box. Keep it warm, so you can create a hot water bottle using an old drinks bottle, something like that. It's a 2-litre drinks bottle, fill it with warm water, so it's got a bit of extra warmth in there. There is a difference of opinion amongst carers about whether you should offer them food or not in these instances. My advice is a little bit of meaty pet food in a jam jar lid, a little bit of water in a similar thing. Jam jar lids are great because if they're not very active, they can just sort of lean across and eat or drink. Keep an eye on it, but keep it quiet and gentle. Put a lid on it, because if they do suddenly get perky, they'll clamber up, they will escape. And then what they will do is they will get behind the most immovable bit of your kitchen and stay there because of the prickles. You can't just pull them out because the prickles are all stuck. Yeah, you'll have to dismantle your kitchen. So make sure they can't escape. And then once you've done that, get in touch with a local rescue, describe what you've got, and they will then take control.
That's really helpful, thanks. Okay, so it's been really nice talking to you. I've just got one final question. Tell me an unusual fact that not many people know about hedgehogs.
Is this going to an adult audience or to an audience which will include children?
Probably both.
Probably both.
Well, there's so many interesting things. I mean, the most interesting fact about the hedgehogs is that you can learn loads about them by buying one of 3 different books which I've written all about hedgehogs. So that's okay. No, hedgehog prickles. Okay, what do you reckon hedgehog prickles are made of?
Oh, I don't know.
Good, you see, that's a start. Hedgehog prickles are made of hair. Same stuff your hair is made of, same stuff your fingernails are made of, keratin. Yeah. So all hedgehog prickles are modified hair. Oh. And an adult hedgehog can have up to 6,000 prickles on their back.
That's a lot.
That'll do. Hedgehog prickles are also very good shock absorbers. So they will climb, and if they fall, they will not be injured.
That is very useful. We all need some prickles. Right, so thank you so much, Hugh. It's been really
pleasure, Chloe. And I'm hoping you normally do wear a hedgehog necklace, and you haven't just put it on especially.
No, I wear it a lot.
But you used to rescue hedgehogs.
Yeah, I used to rescue some hedgehogs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but your advice is very relevant. That is exactly what I would have done.
When I am on my grand tour, which one day I will have my grand tour, I'm already plotting it. I've got a sequence of goddaughters who I haven't seen for ages, and I've got a mother in the northwest, and I've got a cousin in Yorkshire, and who I haven't seen for, and I'm already plotting, thinking I'm going to do this grand tour when my family will let me have some peace and quiet, and I shall descend on Scargill, and I shall come and see quite what you're doing and how your hedgehogs are coping.
Yes, of course, come and visit. Yeah. So it's been really fascinating talking to you. I've really enjoyed myself. Hope you have too.
Hey, it's a great pleasure. Cheers, Chloe.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay, bye bye now.